Thank you so much for joining our advocacy meeting today. We're grateful that you took the time out of your lunch hour to be here. As always, we're grateful for you all just being able to join and listen to our all of our meetings every month. We appreciate you all joining and hopping in. We have many people who are still hopping in, so as we get started, I'll keep admitting people to the room. But thank you so much for being here. We have a great advocacy meeting in store today. It's on voter registration, and we're going to talk about some great information and resources regarding voting. And we think the meeting is pretty great timing as we have some new elections coming up here very soon. It'll be here before we know it. So we're very grateful. Our office, obviously, the Arc of Florida, we're here in Tallahassee, and we have partnered with and asked our local supervisor of elections office to present today, and so we're very grateful that they were able to uh, uh, to do this for us and take the time out of their busy schedule as they're getting ready for elections to be here and present for us today. So we have Alexandra or Alice and Quentin as well, but I'm going to introduce Alice and then we'll go from there. We appreciate you all again so much. And so let's get started. Alice Mosca is the Public Information Specialist for Leon County Supervisor of Elections Office and has over 15 years of experience in professional election administration. Today we're going to talk about voter registration changes that could have already happened this year or could be happening, different ways to vote, and we're going to talk about accessible voting options relating to those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So thank you so much for being here. And again, we are so grateful to have Alice and Quentin taking the time to join us and present today. And I'm going to let Alice take it away. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Dustin, for this wonderful opportunity. We're always so grateful to have community partners get in touch with us and provide us with an opportunity to engage with voters in forums like these. So thank you so much for setting this up and making this happen. So I'm Alice Mosca with the Leon County Supervisor of Elections Office. For those of you that may not be aware of how election administration works here in Florida, every county has an independently elected official, a supervisor of elections, who is responsible for the conduct of the election in their county. So when you go to vote on election day and you see all those poll workers, all of that is set up and managed by that local county supervisor of elections office. And our job is our one purpose is to ensure that you and all the voters of Leon County have access to safe, accessible, transparent, and accurate elections and the other elements that tie into that, such as voter registration. So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share this information. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how you can be election ready for these 2026 elections that are coming up. And as Dustin talked about, these elections are fast approaching. The primary election, it is just a little over a month away, and really voting is going to start even faster than that, as we'll soon see. I want to make sure folks can see my slides here. You should see a slide saying, "Are you election ready?" Okay, great. So I'm going to make sure about that. So where do you start with voting? Let's start at the basics. First, it's important to know that you must be registered to vote before you can vote. That is the foundation for being able to cast your ballot, is being registered to vote. Under Florida law, we do have a voter registration deadline for each election. So our next election coming up is the August 18th primary election. And then the voter registration deadline for that is July 20th. So that means you need to be registered to vote here in Florida by July 20th to be able to participate in that August 18th election. That deadline for the primary is also the deadline to change your party affiliation. If you want to change your party before the primary, you can make other changes like changing your address within Florida or updating like a phone number or an email address after that. But if you want to change your party or you want to register to vote in the first place in Florida, you have to do it by July 20th. And then there's a similar deadline for the general election, and that's in November. And that deadline to register is October 5th. But as long as you get in for the primary election, then you'll be fine for the general as well. So it's really important. That's a really key date, and that date is fast approaching. We are less than 2 weeks away from the voter registration deadline for the primary. So do not wait. Now is the time to be registering to vote. Now is the time to be updating your information. Now is the time to be sharing this information with your colleagues, with your friends, with your family members, with folks you may advocate for, to make sure that they have this information as well, because that clock is ticking. So what are the voter registration requirements in Florida? So Florida law does set out what these minimum requirements are to be registered to vote. You have to be a United States citizen, and you have to be a Florida resident. And Florida residency means essentially that you sleep in the state of Florida. More days than not, you are sleeping in a bed in the state of Florida. That can be a little complicated for a lot of the college students that we have here in Leon County. So we oftentimes will work through those details with those folks. But generally, if you feel that Florida is where you reside most of the time, then you can register to vote here. You also have to be at least 18 years old to be a fully registered voter, but you can pre-register at 16 or 17. And pre-registration means you complete the paperwork to register to vote, and then you file it with us, and then you go into like a holding status called pre-registration. And then the day you turn 18, you become a registered voter, and we mail you your voter information card. It's a great way to set yourself up for success, and it's a great way to share that with family members or friends that maybe, that are 16 or 17 years old. It's like telling them, hey, you can pre-register, you can get this taken care of in advance, and that way you don't have to worry about it right when you turn 18. So those are the three things you have to be able to, the requirements you have to meet to be able to register. Now, under Florida law, people can also lose the right to vote in essentially two different circumstances. One is if you're convicted of a felony, you lose the right to vote until you complete all terms of your sentence. And that includes things like prison time, probation, parole, fines and fees, all that kind of stuff. Until all of that is completed, you don't have the right to vote. It also it doesn't apply if someone's convicted of a murder or a sexual offense. That automatic restoration doesn't happen. There's a separate pathway that people can take to get clemency from the governor and the cabinet for those kinds of circumstances. But generally, someone has to complete all terms of their sentence to get the right to vote back. The other way someone can lose their right to vote is, excuse me one second. If a court has removed your right to vote due to mental incapacitation. This is a very specific entry that would be in the court records for an individual who has mental impairments. And it would not just be a guardianship situation, it would be a specific line in the court records that says this person has lost the right to vote due to mental incapacitation. Generally, guardianship in of itself does not remove the right to vote. It is very specific in the court records. So I understand that may be something that people that associate with the ARC, that may be something that comes up a little bit more often. So I want to highlight that fact, that is something you want to be really careful about when you're looking for. Because if you believe that, hey, I'm a guardian for someone else, that person can't vote, that's not fully accurate. It really does depend upon the particular facts and circumstances of each individual and going to those specific court documents that establish the mental incapacity. So you always want to refer back to those. All right, moving on. This is a little bit more additional information about the restoration of voting rights, and it applies for persons who were formerly convicted of a felony, how the Constitution in Florida was amended to allow that automatic restoration of rights when someone has completed all terms of their sentence, but it does not apply to murder or sexual offenses. But once someone has completed all terms of their sentence, then their right to vote is automatically restored. If someone doesn't know if they've completed all terms of their sentence, and this is something that that can come up more often than you would think when people have fines, fees, restitution that they may need to pay. The details about that financial amounts, those legal financial obligations can get complicated. So the Department of State Division of Elections, which is a state agency here in Florida, they can do the research for on an individual basis for to determine how much in fines and fees someone has to repay. So if there's someone and they're uncertain about their status regarding this, they can always go to that Department of State to get that additional details. But if you've never been convicted of a felony, you don't have to worry about this. So not too bad. So how do you register to vote? Under Florida, there's three primary pathways that you would register to vote. One is you can do it online. There's a state website, which is registertovoteflorida.gov, and that's the website for the whole state of Florida. And you can go to that site and you can register to vote online. If you have a Florida driver's license or Florida ID card number, you can register completely online because the system will take the signature that you completed when you got your ID card and use that to complete the registration process. So that's a fully online process. You complete it online, takes 5 to 10 minutes, and then we would receive that at the Supervisor of Elections office and then send out a voter information card. That same site can also be used to update a registration. Now, if you don't have a Florida driver's license or Florida ID card, that site will let you fill out an application on the screen, but you then have to print it and mail it or drop it off in person. So it can be helpful as a tool to facilitate that paper, but you will still need to print it and then deliver it. That's the other way you can register to vote is you can just do it on that paper form, either through registervoteflorida.gov. You can get it from our website. You can get one of those paper forms from a library. You can pick it up in a lot of different places. And then you would essentially just mail it to our office. There's the addresses on the form. If you don't have access to that paperwork or you need a return envelope, a stamp would be an issue, you can always contact our office and we will happily mail you a voter registration application as well as a return envelope you could use to send it back to us. So that's always an option as well. And you can also register in person. A lot of people actually register in person. Around half of all voters register when they're going to the tax collector's office to get their Florida driver's license or ID card or update one of those cards. It's a very common pathway people use to register to vote. You can also come into our office as well and register in person here. Local libraries, all the public libraries in Leon County, they have voter registration applications and they can accept those from you. So you can fill out an application there, drop it off with the library staff, and they will then get the form to us. They'll transmit it on over to us. So that's those three different pathways. Any of those will work for you. Oftentimes the online option is really the easiest way to do it as long as you have a driver's license or a Florida driver's license or Florida ID card. But all of those are open and happy to take them voter registration applications however we get them. If you're uncertain that you're registered to vote, you're like, oh, I don't know. Maybe I did it a couple years ago, or I registered once, but I'm not sure if it's updated. You can always visit registertovoteflorida.gov. And on that site, you can also check to see if you are already registered. And it will say, hey, am I already registered? And you look up your information. Or you can also contact us at your Supervisor of Elections office. We can very easily look up your information. You can give us a call, you can visit our website, or you can shoot us an email, and we can look up your information in just a few minutes. And then we can share that with you very easily. How do you update your registration? So you can update it using any of the pathways we already talked about to register to vote. You can do that online at registervoteflorida.gov. You can mail in a form. You can do it in person at the library, at the DMV, wherever you want to do that. But you should be updating your registration probably more frequently than you might think. Whenever you move, you should update your voter registration. That's really important because your address is used to figure out where you vote on election day. It sets your precinct assignment for what races you can vote in. If you have a vote by mail ballot, we're going to send it to that address. So if you don't update your address, it might be going to an empty household. So you should update it whenever you move. If your signature changes over time, you would want to update your application if your signature changes. And this can happen when folks, become a little bit older as adults. A lot of people's signature changes from like being a teenager to a young adult, or when people get older as well, from being an adult to being, elderly. Sometimes people's signatures change. And sometimes with medical situations, someone might have an injury or a cognitive impairment, and their signature can change over time. So whenever your signature changes, we would also want to get an updated signature. And that signature is used to do things like verify petitions, or if you vote on a vote by mail ballot, we're going to compare that signature to the what we see in your voter record. So it can be really important to keep that one up to date as well. And if you want to change your party to vote in a primary election, you can do that as well as part of that update. And that one does have that voter registration deadline. You have to get that in 29 days before the election to have it be in effect. Okay. What address do you use to register to vote? Well, if you live in Leon County, you can register to and vote here. We talk about this a little bit because we have so many college and university students here in Leon County that this can be a little confusing. But if you move to Leon County for school, but you still have residence in another county or state, you can register to vote there, or really you can register to vote here. We see that a lot with college students who come back and forth for several years and staying over the summer at their home state. And you can register to vote here in Leon County with your address, or you could be back in the home state and using like your parents' address. It really depends upon where you feel like you mentally reside most of the time. And there can be some nuance with that. So if you have any questions, you can just contact our office and we'd be happy to work through those details with you. But generally, if you're sleeping in a bed here in Leon County most of the time, you can register to vote here in Leon County. Um, so we talked a little bit about changing your party, and I want to talk a little bit about that in a little bit more detail. The reason for that is Florida is a closed primary election state. That means the races and candidates that show up on your ballot in the primary depend on the party that you pick. So the way that works is your ballot in a primary election will have partisan contests for the candidate and the parties that you picked when you registered to vote. Then it also has nonpartisan candidates and races for everything else. So that means that all voters will have a ballot in the primary election, but the races and candidates that you see will vary depending upon your political party. So the choice that you make when you register will have an impact on the races and candidates you can vote on. Now, you don't have to register with a political party. Many people choose to register no party affiliation. And the general election, you can vote for all candidates and races that are on your ballot, regardless of party affiliation. And you can always change your party, but if you want to change it shortly before a primary election, you have to do it at least 29 days before that primary. So that deadline is coming up because that is July 20th. So if you want to change your party affiliation so you can vote for or against particular candidates in that primary, that deadline is coming up soon. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like on your ballot. So if you register with like the Republican Party, that means in this primary election, your ballot would have Republican candidates in partisan contests, all candidates in nonpartisan contests, and all of our local races are really nonpartisan, like the city commission, the county commission, school board. Those are all nonpartisan contests. You could also vote in any universal primaries, but we don't have any of those this year. Then if you have a Democratic ballot, because you registered with the Democratic Party, you'd have Democratic candidates in partisan contests. And partisan contests are things like the United States House of Representatives, the Florida House, the governor's race, cabinet races, all those are partisan contests. That Democratic ballot would then also have all the candidates in nonpartisan contests and any universal primaries. And then if you register without a party or with a minor party, you won't see those partisan contests on your ballot, but you would see all those candidates for nonpartisan contests and all those universal primaries, not that we have one this year. So your choice, it's up to you how you want to make that choice, and you can change it. But if you want to change it, got to make sure it's done 29 days or more before the primary. So you've talked a lot about registering to vote now. So let's talk about voting itself. Now, you register to vote so you can vote. And in Florida, we have three different ways that you can vote. And we'll talk a little bit about each of these in detail. One of them is early voting before Election Day in person. One of them is by mail. And the third is at your polling place on Election Day. And I want to stress here that all three different pathways here, they're all ultimately you're voting the same ballot. You see the same choices, you have the same options, and all three of these have accessible ways to vote as well. Quentin will talk a little, my colleague Quentin, he's going to talk a little bit more about accessibility in the voting options after I'm done talking with this presentation. But know that all three of these pathways have accessible voting options. So you can cast a ballot using the technology and tools that facilitate you being able to use your voice. So what is early voting? Early voting is when you vote in person in the days before Election Day. We have 10 different early voting sites in Leon County. There are things like local libraries and community centers, the Leon County Courthouse, and our office, and they're geographically spread throughout the county. And you can vote at any of those that you want during the early voting period. For that August 18th primary that's coming up, those early voting days are Saturday, August 8th through Sunday, August 16th. So that's one really great thing about that is it's on the weekend, which can be really helpful. It's on the weekdays as well, of course. But for a lot of folks, that weekend voting is a really great option because it's nice and flexible. And you can vote at any of those 10 early voting sites throughout Leon County. The hours do vary by location, but generally they're going to be open during sort of regular business hours. Some are open 8 a.m. until 4 p.m., others 10 a.m. until 6 p.m., but generally in the middle of the day is when they're going to be open. But the big thing is that they're open on weekends. So it's really nice and flexible, and you can vote at any of those 10 different sites. The next way you can vote is voting by mail. And under Florida law, all voters in Florida can vote by mail. You do not need an excuse or a specific reason. Anyone can do it. But you do have to request your ballot in advance. So you'd submit a request to our office for your vote by mail ballot. You can do that over the phone. You can do it online. You can do it by completing a paper form and mailing it to us. Plenty of different pathways to do that. Once we get that request, we will put it on our system and we will mail you your ballot within like 2 days. And that initial mail out of ballots is actually going to happen tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to mail out around 30,000 vote by mail ballots to the voters of Leon County. But you can put your requests in after that point and we'll continue to send them out. The last day you can submit a request for a vote by mail ballot is August 6th. So that's the last day you could request one for the primary. So you still have plenty of time if you want to vote by mail, but now's a great time to do it. So after this call is over, if you're like, hey, I want to vote by mail, well, submit that request for a vote by mail ballot. Just get it taken care of today. Give us a call, do it online, and we can get you your ballot in the next several days. To return your ballot, we must receive it by 7 p.m. on Election Day. Now, we have to have it in hand by Election Day. So you can mail it to us, and you do not need to use a stamp when you mail it. We prepay the postage on that envelope. So we will, you don't even have to use a stamp. You get the envelope in the mail, you fill out your ballot, you put it in that envelope, you sign it, and you put it in the mail, and it comes back to us. As long as we have it by 7 p.m. on Election Day, you're good to go. You can also drop your ballot off at a secure ballot intake station. Those drop boxes are available at each early voting site whenever early voting is happening, or you can also drop it off at our office as well. So that those options are available. So you can just either mail it with no stamp needed or drop it off in the hands, essentially into a drop box directly to an election official. So those options are all available. The last way, and a lot of people vote this way, of course, is on Election Day itself. On Election Day, and that is going to be August 18th for this primary election, you have to vote at your neighborhood polling place. You can't vote at different sites. You have to vote only at your neighborhood polling place on Election Day. Those polls are open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And your polling place, you can find it on your voter information card that we send to you. We'll also send out an election guide to every voter in Leon County, and that will say what your polling place is on the cover. You could also check our website or give us a call if you have any questions about what your polling place is. But on Election Day, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. at your neighborhood polling place. Um, all right. And one thing is if you're voting in person, you do need identification to be able to vote. Florida law says you have to present photo ID with a signature to be able to vote in person. So that's both early voting and election day voting. And here's a list of those IDs that are acceptable. Most people use their Florida driver's license or Florida ID card. But if you don't have one of those, there are a lot of other options like a passport, a debit or credit card, as long as it has a photo, military ID, public assistance ID, a veteran's ID, an employee ID card issued by a federal, state, county, or municipal government. So there's a lot of options. And important to note is you do not need to bring your voter information card. That voter information card is not a form of ID, and you do not need to bring it with you when you go vote. You have to just bring that photo ID with you. So once you have that, you can go and vote in person. Um, and if you have more questions or you need additional information, we at the Leon County Supervisor of Elections Office, we are your nonpartisan government source for election information. We are the professional election administrators, and our job is to serve you, the voters of Leon County. And if you're not a Leon County voter, you have another one of these offices in your county that would be your best source for that information. Because there are things that differ from county to county, like early voting dates are going to differ very slightly. So you'd want to get in touch with your local county supervisor of elections. You can go to our website, leonvotes.gov, and that's going to have a ton of resources for you about all the stuff that we've just talked about today and a lot more as well. So feel free to reach out and get in touch with us, and we can happy to answer your questions, guide you through the process, and provide whatever resources or assistance you may need to be able to register and vote. All right. Now, I know I wanted to hand it on over to Quentin now. Quentin is my colleague with the elections office. He's going to talk a little bit in greater detail about accessible voting options that exist and how you can access those resources. All right, Quentin, are you available?
Yes. Thank
Okay,
you,
great.
Alice, for that wonderful presentation. As she was saying, my name is Quentin Powell, and I work here for our wonderful Supervisor of Elections, Mark Early, in the Elections Office. I primarily work, and I'm a co-lead of our vote by mail effort here in the county, but I also go ahead and do general voter registration duties as well with work with candidates. And I just wanted to thank you again, Dustin, for giving us the opportunity to address the public here specifically about some of our accessible voting solutions, which a lot of voters, even those who need or want to use these solutions, aren't aware of. Um, so the first thing to note is that these are generally applicable to Leon County specifically. So if you want more information or you're a registered voter in a different county, I suggest getting into contact with your various or appropriate supervisor of election, and you can find their information on the Florida Division of Elections website, which has contact information for all supervisor of elections here in Florida. But here in Leon County, there are many accessible options. A lot of our voters with accessibility issues like to use our vote by mail option as well. So one thing to know and be informed about is that anyone can help you fill out your vote by mail ballot. So you're free to make your request. Someone can make a request on behalf of you as long as they're an appropriate family member, and anyone can help you fill out your ballot itself, but you, the voter, must be the one to sign the ballot. No one else can sign the ballot. You can get help filling out the races. You can get someone to read the races to you, even bubbing the ovals for you. But you must be the person to sign the ballot. So that's a really important thing to note right there. But a lot of our voters like to use that. They can do it from the comfort of their own homes. They don't have to go to an early voting or a polling place. And as Alice was saying, it's very easy to make a vote by mail request. You can call our office, you can request one online, you can mail us a paper form, and as well, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to call us as well. If you have other accessibility concerns, there's a specific accessible ballot that we can send out to you as a voter as well. So if that is at all something that you're interested in, please get into contact with our office and we can walk you through the steps on how to get that ballot and how to return it to us in the proper way. But if you are like many of our voters here in Leon County and you like to vote in person, either early or on election day, we also have accessible options for you as well. You are also able to get assistance in a polling place or an early voting site. You can have someone, you can bring someone to assist you, and they just need to have the right paperwork on file, and they'll have that paperwork there at the early voting or polling place that you can fill out. Or you can have poll workers or early voting workers assist you as well at a polling place or an early voting site. If that's the case, um, oftentimes we'll have multiple members of our staff assist you who are of varying partying affiliations just to make sure that we're keeping everything above board. But as well, when you get to an early voting or polling place, the voting machine itself can also act as an accessible voting machine as well. And you can talk to the clerk or any poll worker, but there are audio options, there are visual options, there are sip and puff options, there are audio visual, just audio options as well. So there are multiple ways to assist any type of voter with any type of accessibility issue as well, including the voting machine can also act as a ballot marking device as well. So if you're having trouble as well with marking your ballot, it can also act as a ballot marking device as well. So you can always get assistance from the clerk or any other early voting or poll worker to get assistance about a lot of questions we receive in regards to accessible issues is like if you're a voter and your signature has changed, Alice was alluding it to before, a voter registration application also acts as a signature update. So if you are at all concerned about your signature changing or something has happened and you know your signature is going to look different, just submit a new Florida voter registration application to our office to get a new signature on file with us. And if you're voting by mail, we need to receive that Florida voter registration application before we receive your vote by mail ballot as well. Another really important option in that same vein is you can always come to our office to pick up a ballot. You can designate someone to come and pick up a ballot, bring it to you, vote it, and then they can drop it off to our office as well or mail it for you. So that is an option as well. Just note that there is additional corresponding paperwork that needs to be filled out, especially if you're designating someone to pick up a ballot for you. That requires your signature as well as the designee's signature as well. So once again, if you have any questions about any of our accessible voting options, you're free to call or email our office or come on in and we'd be happy to help you.
Thank you,
Thanks so much,
Quentin.
Quentin. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So yeah, Dustin, I was hoping now to open up to questions. If people have any questions about any of the material that we've covered, or anything else really related to nonpartisan elections, that kind of stuff, happy to answer questions that anyone may have.
Awesome. I want to say, Alice, thank you, and Quentin, thank you both so much. That was a great presentation. It was very informational, and we appreciate how you mentioned advice and notes and tips and resources for our folks that would have accessibility challenges and what they can do to make their voting life easier. So we definitely appreciate that. I think this was a beneficial meeting. And I am grateful that you took the time to be with us today and to present for us. We didn't have any questions in the chat, but I will open up the floor, open up the room. If anyone has any questions, they want to unmute. If you want to unmute your mic and go ahead and just ask some questions. If you want to raise your hand with the emoji, or if you just want to type it in the chat. Any questions about voting in maybe in your county or that we might be able to help with, or any kind of voting questions that you have um,
Hey,
regarding the
Dustin, it's Summer.
upcoming
Can you
election.
hear me?
Yeah, Summer.
Hey, sorry, I'm driving, so I apologize that I'm not on camera. Thank you again. Great presentation. I'm the president and CEO for the ARC of Florida, and we're really thrilled that you guys could make time to be talking about this particular subject matter. So I guess my question, and I feel like I know the answer, but I want to ask the experts. Since you guys are local, to our Leon County supervisor of election. Everything you just shared with our group is pretty much the same for any other of our counties that other folks may be in, and kind of the same, I would say, protocols too, right? If there's someone in Dade County or Broward County on the call today, to reach out to their local supervisor of election will be pretty the same as what you all just described, maybe slightly different. It is a different office, a different elected official, but pretty much the same, correct?
Yes, Summer, that is correct. Almost everything would be exactly the same. We here at the Supervisor of Elections offices, we don't make law. We follow the laws that are put in place by the legislature. And so when we do that, then we are following the law, and that law is pretty much universal throughout Florida. The only particular thing that comes to mind is obviously, well, two things. One is the contact information. If you go to leonvotes.gov, that's the website for the Leon County Supervisor of Elections office. So you'd want to go to the contact information for your local county. The other thing is early voting dates for an election. There are some that are set in law, and then there are some that are optional, and the county can choose whether or not to offer those optional days. So those days of early voting can differ county by county. But otherwise, it's pretty much going to be the same. I would absolutely recommend, however, for folks who do live in other counties throughout the state of Florida to check in with your local supervisor of elections office, because they're going to have that specific information for your county and needs.
That's awesome. Thank you. One more question. With some of the changes from this legislative session on voting that I don't think takes effect until January 1, 2027, as you guys at each of the, supervisor of election office grapple through those changes, what would be a good time to maybe circle back with you to maybe it's a point, 2.0 that we offer again some additional changes that we know are coming, but maybe they're not ready. They don't have to go into effect for this election
Sure.
cycle, but again, going into effect next year, maybe we can have you come back.
Yeah, absolutely. What Summer is referring to here is the Florida legislature passed a law which this year, which would make some additional requirements for documentary proof of citizenship when registering to vote, as well as changes to what forms of ID voters can use at the polls. Now, those changes do not go into effect until January 1st, 2027, which is why I didn't want to go into a lot of detail in this presentation about them. It's just because
Not to confuse
you just want
anyone,
to confuse
right?
people. Exactly.
Right.
So there's nothing we need to worry about those about that new law for the 2026 primary or general elections. Once we're in the new year, we are absolutely going to be sharing information and resources about that change and what action, if any, voters may need to take. So I think it would be a great opportunity to have another one of these calls, in probably the second quarter of 2027. So that way we've got our feet underneath us, we've got some materials put together, and we can share that information with community partners such as the ARC of Florida to disseminate and share that with the voters of Leon County and statewide, of course. So I think it's an absolutely great and fantastic idea for us to start tackling that in 2027.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Yep. Yeah, thank you, Alice. That's great. Yeah, we know there are a few changes coming, and thankfully we don't have to worry about it this time around. But it'll be here soon next year. But yeah, anybody else have any questions? We have plenty of time left for questions, and we know that it was a very informational meeting. So we had Miss Lisa commented and said that everything was answered for her, so we appreciate that. But I don't think we have any other questions. That it really was a great meeting. I think it was very beneficial. Like I said, you know better than I do. Next month will be here so fast. So I mean, July is going to be over before we know it. So election, making sure all your information is correct and making sure that you're registered to vote and ready to go is very important if you want to be a part and make your voice heard in this next election cycle. So again,
Hmm.
Quentin, Alice, Alexandra, Alice, thank you so much. It was an awesome presentation. We would love to do another presentation with you all next year and go over some of these new changes. So we definitely look forward to partnering with you all again. And we hope you have a wonderful week and we give you all 20 minutes back of your lunch break. So hopefully you all can enjoy some lunch and have a great rest of your day. And we appreciate you all so much and look forward to seeing resources and information coming out from this meeting. We'll send out an email tomorrow, as well as the link to our recorded meeting on the YouTube page so you can go back and watch anything you might have missed. And so, again, we thank you all for joining and taking the time today and hope you all have a great day.
Thank you so much, Dustin, again, and thank you all for the taking some time out of your lunch today to learn about this stuff. It was my pleasure to speak with you all and provide this information. And if you wondering about what you can do right now, go to leonvotes.gov, to go to the website for your local county supervisor of elections, check that you're registered to vote, your information is up to date, and share this information with your friends, with your family, with your colleagues, and the folks that you advocate for, so that way they can be election ready as well.
Absolutely. Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Alice. I hope you all have a great day.
And you as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you.